got a free laptop from a company called MindGroo, Part 2 and 3, by Like I Did. When I looked out the window later that evening, the wrecked car was gone. The tow truck must have taken it away. I still felt weird about the whole situation. Something was very odd about that MindGroo guy. Rockford was a small place, but the fact that he knew my name and even had it programmed into the laptop was a huge violation of privacy. Miss Slitlers is the mother of one of the kids I was teaching and lived on the opposite side of the street. After some small talk, she told me that she hadn't seen any car wreck, and she seemed genuinely surprised by the things I was telling her. When I carefully brought up the topic of the laptops, she reacted pretty normally. "Oh, I'm not too fond of those new things. I already have trouble writing a simple email. Nicky has been playing with it since he got back from school, though. He seems to really enjoy it, which in turn gives me some more peace and quiet." "Did they give everyone in town one of them? They look pretty expensive, don't they?" I said. "They do, but I think they did it because of a lot of people were unhappy with that big company coming to our pretty town. Especially as no one here even got a job there. I think the laptops are supposed to be some compensation." "I guess that makes sense." "Well, I need to get back inside, but don't worry about these things too much. People always get bored after a little while." After the chat with Miss Slitlers, I started to feel like I was overreacting. I had a pretty long day and I was still a little buzzed, so I decided to call it a day and not think about the strange laptop anymore. I put it in one of my drawers and went to bed. The next day, I somehow slept through my alarm. As I got up and saw the time on my phone, I quickly got up, got dressed, and headed to school. Luckily, the building was really close by. I had to skip breakfast, but got in just about 5 minutes late. As I approached the door of my classroom, I realized that it was eerily quiet. I wondered if the class had either left or if I had read my schedule wrong. I teach a group of 14 to 15-year-olds, and you usually hear them to the end of the hall. I slowly opened the door and was surprised to see all the students inside, quietly staring at those green ruler laptops. Some were alone and others were sharing one device, but no one was talking. As they heard me approaching, they all lifted their heads at the same time and just stared at me. "Good morning, everyone," I said carefully as I approached my desk. "Good morning, Mr. Jones," they repeated in unison, and looked back at their laptops. "Close the laptops now. Class is about to start," I said, now firmer. I was known for being a more laid-back teacher, but I was not going to teach a group of zombies staring at a strange laptop. "But Mr. Jones, we're using them to study," Nicky, the son of Miss Slithers, exclaimed. He had big bags under his eyes. It didn't look like he slept much last night. Now I got a bit curious myself. "How? All the apps I saw made no sense," I said as I walked over to a group of teens sitting in the first row. As they saw me approach, they quickly closed the laptop. "Did you complete the survey?" Mario asked. I hadn't noticed that he was sitting in the first row next to Nicky. It was a little odd. Mario is known for being a bit of a bully, and Nicky was one of his usual victims. "All right, enough now with the gruelers." I stepped back again. "No, look, Mr. Jones. You don't get it. You have to fill in the survey, and then everything makes more sense." I raised an eyebrow. "It assigns you to a group." One of the girls sitting in the back chimed in. "It's really cool, Mr. Jones. It learns about you and matches all of its apps to what you like." "What do you mean, by group?" I asked. The entire class started laughing. "How old are you, Mr. Jones? Ever heard of a personalized experience?" Alright, enough now. Put the rulers away now before I confiscate them. They seemed genuinely threatened, and just like that, all the green laptops disappeared into their bags. As I looked around the room, I realized that 2 of the kids were missing. I wrote down their names and started class. I did find it hard to focus all day. Maybe it was the fact that I hadn't had any coffee or breakfast yet, but somehow the personalized aspect sounded interesting. I wanted to know what the whole thing was about. During lunch break, I caught Connie and asked if she had gotten a grueler as well. Of course, she had. To be honest, I was a bit tipsy after I left the 3 sisters, and I was totally overwhelmed by that thing. That survey started off strange, but after a while I had a lot of fun with it. Some of those questions were hilarious, and the feedback was awesome. I'm a bird. She lifted her head, as if that nonsense was something to be proud of. Am I supposed to understand what the hell you're talking about? You're a bit grumpy today, James. And yeah, when you use a thing a little longer, it puts you into a class. There are birds and mice as far as I know. I couldn't help but laugh. Sounds like fun, Connie. Did you play with the other birds in your class? She rolled her eyes and continued. Don't take it so literally. It's just a fun way to name the program. The way it's matched to your personality helps with the way it organizes your calendar. The way it's matched to your personality helps with the way it organizes your calendar, the colors it uses, and so on. It's actually quite innovative. I still don't get it. I thought the survey was about your opinions on the laptop. What is it with that personality part? Well, yes, it's about your user experience. It learns and adapts as you go with it. That's why the survey is such an important part. Right. I still wasn't convinced. So what's the difference between the animals? No idea. I fell asleep before I had time to figure out more, but all my kids are obsessed with it. They've even started mingling with each other more, based on their groups. At first I thought they might start fighting or something, but they've been a lot more quiet and kind so far, she said. I think I noticed something similar with my class. Just complete the survey, Jamie, and you'll get it. Be a bit more open for change. She winked and left the room with her cup of coffee. When I got back from work, the first thing I did was open the grueler again. I still felt a little weirded out by it, but at the same time, I didn't want to be the only person in town that didn't get what this new hype was all about. It was just some laptop after all. I continued the survey, at the point where I stopped yesterday. There were a few more questions about my general opinion on the laptop. If I liked the color, if it was easy to understand, if I'd recommend it to others. Normal user experience questions. Then a few more of those weird scenarios came up. Imagine you are sitting at home, enjoying some nice spaghetti and meatballs, while watching a clip on your grueler. Suddenly, someone rings on your door and asks you to give them the grueler for maintenance purposes. What do? 1. Give them the grueler. They must know better what's good for me. They must know better what's good for me. Get a knife from the kitchen and threaten them. They are not better than me. 3. Ask... 1. Give them the grueler. They must know better what's good for me. 2. Get a knife from the kitchen and threaten them. They are not better than me. 3. Ask what I can get in exchange. Those questions were oddly specific. I remembered again why I had felt so creeped out yesterday. I still decided to finish the survey. Every time I answered one of the questions, they got weirder. It got to the point where I would get excited to see what kind of bullshit they would pull out next. The next set of questions were not what I had expected at all, though. They didn't even have anything to do with the laptop. Imagine you found out that all of your friends were planning to do something awful to you. They think you are a shitty person, and they want to eliminate you.
They have planned an evening with you, where they will drug you just enough that you will feel sick but won't die. Then, they start torturing you until you either die or lose your mind entirely. Luckily, you found out about their evil plans in time. What do you do? 1. Turn things around. I will do the same to them when they don't expect it. 2. Kill all of them quickly. I don't have time for their dumb plans. 3. Let them go through with it. They might have good reasons to hate me, and I deserve this.
I felt my stomach turn. Had my school class filled in this exact survey? If yes, then somebody had to do something about this. Their parents couldn't possibly be fine with this. How was Connie okay with this? I tried to click escape again, but instead I got a notification.
Jamie, complete the survey now. Or do you want this to come out? Take a look at your phone gallery.
It was a bunch of photos. Photos that I definitely did not take. And I most definitely didn't want to see this. I don't want to talk about this too much, but it was pictures of children I teach. Photos of teenagers that I should not be having on my phone. I swear that I had nothing to do with it. They somehow got into my phone and planted them there. I started freaking out. I wanted to throw up. Started thinking about simply going over to the company and asking them what the hell was going on. But I was too afraid of possible consequences. Not only would I lose my job if anyone saw this, but I would most likely be sent to prison. So I went on and answered all of those fucked up questions. I was really pissed, but for some reason I couldn't help but answer everything as honestly as I could. Finally, the survey was finished.
Thank you for completing the survey, Jamie. You are a snake.
The screen turned black, and after a while, another snake moving in circles appeared. It was updating. After a while, the home screen was back with new apps. One of them looked like a globe. I clicked it, and a map of Rockford appeared. Not the way Google Maps looks, but it was a cartoon map. A very detailed one, though. I clicked around and saw the school, the Three Sisters pub, and even my home. I clicked on the pub, and it changed into a video. It looked like a camera video, but made in front of the store. From time to time, people would walk by, but I couldn't see through the tinted windows. Were there surveillance cameras over the town? I wondered. It was strange, but also kind of fun to see the pub like that. Next, I clicked on my own home, but luckily no video appeared. Instead, it said, "Under protection." I had no idea what that was supposed to mean. I figured I'd check some of my friends next. Connie's house had a bird icon on top. As I clicked the icon, a new notification appeared.
As a snake, you have permission to look inside. Would you like to continue?
I wasn't sure what exactly that was supposed to mean. I pressed yes, figuring it would show me a camera feed of her street, just like the Three Sisters one. A video opened, but it wasn't outside. It was Connie, sitting in her living room, looking down on something. A video opened, but it wasn't outside. It was Connie, sitting in her living room, looking down at something. Her grueler, I suppose. This thing had hacked itself into her laptop camera, and now I had access to it. What I was doing felt so intrusive and fucked up. I wondered if I should close my laptop right away or call her first. As I grabbed my phone, I got a notification on the laptop.
Birds can only be surveilled. Would you like to find a mouse for more fun?
I started breathing heavily. I think I had just started some very strange game. I ignored the notification and called Connie. I saw her on the screen getting her phone. This thing was live. She looked at the screen and threw the phone back down. I sighed and tried calling again, but she kept ignoring the call. Finally, I decided to close off the laptop and call Miranda instead. She had been acting strange as well yesterday. Of course, she didn't pick up either. I thought about simply driving over to Connie's and talking to her about what's going on. I wasn't sure if I should tell her about those photos, though. What if she didn't believe me? As I was planning out my next steps, I got interrupted by the sound of my doorbell. I was already dreading who this could be. Before opening the door, I grabbed a knife from the kitchen first. The MindGroo people might be dangerous, and this time I wanted to be prepared.
Wonderful evening to you, Jay. Who are you people? What is all of this? I interrupted the shiny man. I was fuming. His white teeth formed a gigantic smile. He frowned, though, as he noticed the knife in my hand. Now, no need to get hostile. Please, don't forget the information we have on you. I lowered the knife and looked around, but again, there was no one on the street. I felt my hands shake. I had no idea what to do. How to deal with this completely absurd situation. So I stayed quiet. Finally, the man said, "Congratulations on completing the survey. We were all very impressed to see a snake in our midst. As you will learn soon, this comes with many privileges and benefits. One of them being another one of our products. It's very similar to the Grueler, just smaller."
He reached over to hand me a small package and added,
"You might want to find the other snakes in the town. But as you are a very elitist group, it could be a tad more difficult, I'm afraid. Anyway, I hope you enjoy your new Groo guy. Make sure to complete the survey after trying it out."
On the first day, everyone had been curious. Curious about this new company with their eccentric products. Some were skeptical, but after a while, everyone seemed to agree that the free goods were a perk. On the second day, the pit started to spread through town. Shortly, almost everyone had a completed survey. When people found out that they belonged to different classes, the absurdity of randomness slowly turned into actual group thinking. Old friendships dissolved, and people used to hate each other started to fight side by side. But most importantly, people were rumoring about the existence of snakes. The birds were getting arrogant, presumably as the highest ranking people. So far, nobody had admitted to being a snake. You're probably wondering why we all went through with this madness. Why nobody questioned it. Well, I believe that there was some power radiating from the laptops. It was a lot more than just that. They had planned it out perfectly, provided us with a balanced diet of fear and kindness. I didn't know what kind of threats other townspeople may have received, or whether they were simply so mesmerized with the pleasure that the Gruelers provided. You'd wonder why somebody would simply accept being part of the mouse group, but it wasn't exactly a question of acceptance. People were proud of whichever class they were assigned to. What it came down to was that the town had turned mad. Almost everyone was part of the Grueler oddity, and those who weren't were ashamed and punished. I was one of the people who kept questioning everything, to some degree at least. As a snake, I had the perks of knowing what people were up to in advance, which made it easier for me to plan out how I acted. I stayed safe, but at the same time, I didn't try to change things. Even when I started realizing that more and more people were disappearing. To be specific, mice started disappearing. The overall group of birds was bigger though, and so life was easy for most of the townspeople. I hate to admit that I was a coward for the most part. I knew that these horrible things were going on. I knew that Rockefort was turning mad. You probably wonder why I didn't just get out of the town, or at least contact someone from outside? I still find it hard to answer this question. I'll try to explain it as well as I can, though. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where the social hierarchy is flipped around like this. Right now, sitting in safety behind your laptop or phone, you might wonder how humans could turn crazy due to something so irrelevant. I'd just like to tell you that the human mind is a lot more complex than you might think. MindGroo knew exactly what we were doing and how to push the right buttons. They were powerful to some degree and quickly had an entire town behind them. Who you dare to disobey if it meant that you might lose your freedom, or even worse. I had been sucked into the madness and slowly forgot that there was a world behind the woods that surrounded Rockford. And as a snake, at least I knew I was safe. I'm not asking you to understand why we did what we did. I'm just trying to shine some light on this fucked up situation. I didn't open the Groo guy for what must have been hours. I kept staring at the little box, hoping it would simply dissolve into thin air and take the laptop with it. It didn't, though, and distracting myself seemed impossible as well. Eventually, I unpacked the poison green grueler guy. The updating snake took a few rounds, and after a couple of minutes, the thing was ready to use. It resembled a phone, but didn't seem to have any actual call function. In essence, it was just a small version of the laptop, with one extra app. It was an X made out of 2 arrows, and as I opened it, it said,
No current decisions to make.
nothing else. I hadn't gotten any request to complete a survey just yet, which I was happy about. And it didn't appear for days. Enough time passed and I almost started feeling safe again. No sleazy salespeople came to my door, and both laptop and phone were quiet. I'm saying almost because, as I mentioned earlier, in the few days that had passed, a number of people had disappeared. The school children I was missing the other day didn't show up any of the following days. When I called their parents, nobody picked up. I went to the principal, who told me that those kids were excused and had to leave town because of family issues. All 5 of the kids that I was missing by now. It was the same for Miranda. When I asked Jonah what was going on with her, he shrugged and said she went to visit family upstate. Apparently her grandmother had passed away. Connie told me Miranda had left to go on some vacation. Nothing was adding up, and I didn't feel like I could trust a single person anymore. Not only did the principal obviously lie about the missing children, he was also becoming obsessed with the Grueler laptops. Every kid had one, and they were replacing the regular school subjects. Programs on the Grueler that were supposed to be revolutionary and change education for good. I probably didn't need to tell you that the principal was another one of those godforsaken birds. I had stopped going to work altogether. My presence was obsolete. Nobody even seemed to notice or care. I spent the days dreading that something would happen while I saw our town go downhill more and more. I walked by the MindGroo company a couple of times, but they had security placed by the entrance. I never caught any employees, though. No matter how long I stood there and waited, I knew there were people inside because I could see some movement through the glass windows, but that was it. Eventually, I gave up. I had hardly left my home the last days. I started hating being outside and seeing everyone staring at their Grueler products, so I went to buy enough food for days and stayed inside. On Saturday evening, I had had enough. I was so fed up with the entire town and with my so-called friends. Finally, I decided to go to the pub and get some information out of Jonah. Just to be safe, I looked at the live feed on my Grueler first. I couldn't clearly identify much, but it looked as if the pub was packed with people. That was a good sign. People still went drinking and had fun. Maybe I could talk to some of them there. I had been hiding inside for so long that I had missed the crazy changes the town had gone through. Not only the people, but the whole area. First, I noticed it on my street. Things were different. Every house had some symbol sprayed on it. The birdhouses looked normal besides the graffiti, although some of the signs were sprayed on top of the birds. I figured those were either houses with different class members or former mice who had disappeared and whose houses were taken over. The last option just felt so strange to accept. The few single mouse houses I noticed looked wrecked. Cars in front broken, windows shattered, insults sprayed on their facades. I couldn't believe what this town had become in such a short period of time. Finally, I made it to the Three Sisters pub. It seemed to be the only place besides my house without a symbol on the front. I took a deep breath in and opened the door. I froze in my track when I saw about 20 of those MindGroo people staring at me, all with a shiny smile on their face. They all resembled the guy that had come to my door. Some had different hair color or slightly different face structures, but if you told me that they were all clones, I would have believed it.
Wonderful evening to you, Jamie.
They called out in unison, blasting over the music coming from the speakers. I stumbled back and was ready to run home when I noticed Jonah behind the counter. He looked desperate. Quietly, I walked up to him and took a seat at the empty bar. "Hello, Jamie. Gin and tonic as usual?" he said and smiled. Jonah knew I hated gin. I wasn't sure if this was a sign for me to leave or stay. I nodded, taking the risk of staying. From the back, I heard a few voices exclaiming,
Terrific decision. Good choice, Jamie. Yummy.
I shot Jonah a look, but he wouldn't make eye contact with me. The entire atmosphere was so tense. He placed the drink in front of me, and slowly, all of the Grueler people got up, said their annoying goodbyes, and left. Finally, I could breathe out.
What the actual fuck? Jonah, what is happening?
He shook his head. I don't know. I have no clue. They come here every day, all order gin and tonic, but don't drink it. Most of the time, they just stare at me and tell me to complete the survey. You haven't yet? No, and that seems to be the problem, he replied, and then asked, You completed the survey, right? I nodded and looked down at my glass. They're blackmailing me, I added. Jamie, you need to get the hell out of here. Now. Go home. Run. Now. I frowned. Dude, can you just tell me what's going on? I haven't left my home in days, and I'm turning completely insane. He wasn't paying attention to me anymore. He was focused on something behind me. I turned around to see a crowd of people approaching the pub. Jonah jumped over the bar and locked the door. He stumbled back and kept repeating, Fuck, fuck, fuck! I walked over to the window and pushed my face against the glass. The people were smeared with something. It looked like blood, and they all had something drawn on their bodies with it. The same bird symbol.
Jonah?
I told you to go home, he whispered. The people got closer. Some were scratching the glass. Others were shouting,
Come out, traitor!
Without a word, Jonah and I started stacking up tables and chairs against the front. The crowd outside noticed, and they started throwing things at the window. Little bits of glass started splintering. It could only be moments until they broke the glass completely.
We can make this even easier and burn the entire place down.
I heard the principal of our school shout from outside, followed by a shrill laughter. Are you a mouse? I finally asked. No, I told you. I didn't fill that shitty survey. You know, I couldn't care less about this stuff. It was true. Jonah didn't even own a television, let alone a smartphone. He still used one of those old school Nokia phones. We knew there was no way out. We grabbed whatever we could find that might serve as weapons and hunched down behind the bar. I think this is punishment, Jonah whispered. Jonah, shit, why didn't you leave? Why haven't you? He asked back. I swallowed as the glass splintered even more. I closed my eyes, hoping I could open them again to realize that none of this madness was actually true. That it was all just a dream. I was brought back to reality by a strange sound. It wasn't coming from outside, though. It came from my pocket. It was a MindGroo guy.
New snake privilege activated. If you'd like to save your friend, pick one person to suffer instead.
The glass was now completely shattered, and the first people were fighting their way inside. I don't know how I was able to decide something so massively fucked up, but without thinking, without even knowing what this really meant, I typed Principal Marywood. Another noise filled the air. I think it was their phones. Or MindGroo guys? I didn't dare to get up and look. Jonah and I were both staring at each other, holding our breaths. Suddenly, it was quiet. We heard one last loud crack. This time, it wasn't a window. I carefully got up. They were walking away, staring down at their phones.
What the hell happened?
Jonah exclaimed as we slowly walked towards the ruined storefront. The street was empty except for one lifeless body lying in front of the pub. Hey guys, if you made it to this part of the video, I really want to say thank you. And I just want to let you guys know that I will be posting narrations from time to time on Horror Hive. It's a group of narrators who just kind of post narrations on one channel, and I think it's a really cool community. Made some friends there, and I think you should join. And before you guys go, if you could hit the like and subscribe button, that would really help me out. Of course, I just enjoy doing this, and having people who enjoy these stories is awesome. And of course, these narrations wouldn't be possible without the writers, so I want to give a big thank you to Like I Did for letting me narrate this for them. Hope you guys have a good night.